What is the most outrageous waste of money you have witnessed with your own eyes? The 3 separate occasions where my dad bought a boat, neglected to use it for years, sold it, and bought a different boat like the next year. Not the biggest waste, but weirdest one. Around 2001, my wife worked for a national company, and her team was split between East and West Coast. No working from home or laptops. Desktops were standard for them. If someone needed to work from home, they had a single laptop they could use for the whole team. So, if that laptop was an NC, and someone in CA needed to work from home, they had to box it up, ship it with full insurance, rush shipping, and a few days notice to the other coast. My company recently switched to a new operating system, and rather than have a few people come train our office, they planned to send everyone, around 200 people, from the East Coast to the West Coast for a week for training. They did about half before realizing that wasn't cost effective, and since they're such a great company, their solution after that was to stop training everyone and just give them books to read. A girl I went to high school with applied to Harvard. She spelled it Harvard multiple times in her essay and paid the $75 application fee. High school head of math department buys about 10 pallets of chalk and retires the next year. The new head of the math department decides to switch out all the chalkboards for dry erase boards. They aren't allowed to throw out the chalk and aren't allowed to share with other departments who still use chalkboards. They had a room full of chalk for at least 7 or 8 years that no one was allowed to use. Knew a guy that bought a device from a magic website that made it look like you shot fireballs out of your hand. Thing cost $200 and everyone around him said it was stupid. This may be autobiographical. Definitely not the biggest sum of money, but spent for a really stupid reason. I bought a $300 bottle of scotch when I meant to buy the $60 version from the same distillery. The boxes look nearly identical. When the cashier told me the price, I realized my mistake, but she and everyone behind me in line seemed really impressed that I was buying something so expensive. So now I own an unopened very expensive bottle of single malt because of my social anxiety. In Las Vegas in 2000 at the Bellagio, I watched a guy walk up to a high roller blackjack table. He was being followed by a security guard and some guy in a suit carrying what we guesstimated at about $300k in chips. He sat and played blackjack by himself. We watched for about 45 minutes, and he had already lost over $150k. Never once showed any emotion. No clue who the guy was. He was dressed like a stereotypical white grandpa in jean shorts, a polo shirt, and white New Balance tennis shoes. Previous job, a satellite location ran mostly on their own. Technically was their own company of 7 people. President of said company met someone online, got catfished hard, and sent them $20k from the business. Then they did it again 2 years later. In a donut shop on a Friday, guy has cash and keeps buying scratchers. Goes through about $400, then finally stops and says something about paying rent. I'm a VIP tour guide at Walt Disney World. Each guide costs $600 hour, and charging starts when you ask us to meet you, whether you're there or not. A family booked 2 of us multiple days in a row and wouldn't show up until typically 2-3 hours into being charged. $7k plus overall paid for tour time they didn't use. Didn't care at all. I used to have something to do with warehouse logistics and whatnot. A new manager came in, and his first project was an order of about $500,000 worth of pallet. These weren't wooden pallets, but plastic molded ones, specifically made to fit the forklifts that we were using. The order had to be made overseas and brought in by freight. They had to be exact measurements, of course, to fit the forklifts. He started bragging that my sales department made all the money for him to spend. A few months later, the pallets arrived and none of them fit the forklifts in our warehouse, except for one. Turns out, he measured only one of the forklifts for these pallets. That one forklift was part of a unique, non-standard system used for minor moves. Faced with a warehouse of $500,000 worth of plastic pallets that won't work with our standard forklifts, the guy was swiftly asked to resign. But yeah, now we use wood pallets. I work for Amazon's logistical team. They are currently spending thousands of dollars sending people to 450 school so we can move freight between sites. However, they are not giving out bonuses, raises or any kind of incentive. So everyone's just leaving immediately after to better paying jobs. It's hilariously stupid. I had a client who borrowed money at 6% interest only fixed for 5 years to invest in 5-year term deposit offering 2.3% because he was told he should have investments in term deposits when nearing retirement. I have a friend who will book vacations to countries other cow can book trips to just so he can say he's been there first. Although not a big sum of money, my friend once borrowed my other friend's money so he could order a soda at Boston Market. He then went to the soda machine and proceeded to fill his cup up with water. Not sure the amount of money, but it was a lot of bacon. I once worked for a 3-place warehouse primarily focused on food storage services. A client company was storing some pre-cooked bacon for use in some product they were planning to release. They decided not to release said product and ordered all of the bacon we were storing for them to be destroyed. We loaded multiple trucks with close to 150,000 pounds of perfectly edible bacon to get tossed in a landfill. Saddest day of my life while working there. Before anyone asks, there was an auditor from the client there making sure all of the pallets of bacon were loaded onto the trucks and none fell off. I worked with a guy years ago as his manager. We'll call him Kevin. Kevin had a gray 1987 Chevy Celebrity that he had bought for $300, which he customized with 18-inch rims that he had bought for $800 used and likely stolen, and $500 worth of audio equipment, also likely stolen. He decided one day that he should put undercar lights on his $300 1987 Chevy Celebrity. He spent $400 on a fancy set of lights and another $200 to have them installed. Undercar lights happen to be illegal in our state, but you could usually get away with them if you weren't stupid. Kevin was stupid. He decided to show off his $300 1987 Chevy Celebrity with its $800 rims, $500 audio system and $400 undercar lights, which weren't particularly legal in our state. He concluded that the best place to do so was the local carnival, sponsored by and held outside of the local police station. Kevin pulled up to the carnival in his $300 1987 Chevy Celebrity, slowed down on his $800 18-inch rims, and turned on his $400 undercar lights and $500 audio system. Not 100 feet into showing off for the ladies, one of the police officers, of which there were many, decided to show off the lights on his 2002 Chevy Impala. He was given a ticket for $180, but told that if he had the lights removed and showed up to his court date then the ticket would likely be dropped. Returning to the shop at which he purchased the lights for $400, Kevin paid another $100 to have them professionally removed, which he then earned back by selling the $400 set of lights to the very shop for that $100 that he'd just handed them, having only gotten to use them the one time. After removing and ridding himself of the lights that had caused so much drama to Kevin and his $300 1987 Chevy Celebrity, he decided to celebrate by trying to drag race a Mustang on the way home. He wrecked and totaled the car, but walked away unscathed. Thus was the end of the $300 1987 Chevy Celebrity with its $800 rims, $500 audio system and $400 undercar lights. Since the car had been totaled, Kevin never got the chance to prove to the magistrate that the lights had been removed and still had to pay the $180 fine. Friend bought a new fully stocked car he couldn't afford on his salary. He said it's okay because he's getting another job that pays better wages. Only thing is, he hasn't taken the exam to get his license for the job yet. The company I work for invested $1 million into a new framework for servers and databases, let it sit unused for 6 years, and then migrated a very poorly tested environment onto it when it was 2 years until EOL, basically forcing themselves to start looking for a replacement right after migration. Someone buying a PS20 extended 3-year warranty on a PS6 kettle. One of our sister companies decommissioned a printing press that was identical to one we were using. It was given to us to store in a warehouse, so we could scavenge it for parts as needed. Parts for older presses can range from $500 for little things to several $100,000 for larger assemblies, so this was a great gift for us. Our maintenance supervisor, he'd been with the company for about a year, decided to show management how good he was at cost saving, so in an effort to save warehousing costs on useless parts, he told the warehouse to scrap the whole thing, even if it cost $15K a year to warehouse it. We've needed about 20 times that amount in ordered parts. Now that could have come off that old machine. Two of my favorites. My rich uncles bought a luxury sport boat. Something went wrong with the rudder that you use for water skiing. They were so disgusted that, after paying thousands for the repair, they got a whole new one, selling the old one for nothing. I also worked at a high-end footwear factory, making pairs of leather shoes that retail at $500 a pair. The owner was a self-styled anarcho-capitalist and had some entertaining ideas about how to run a business. He had some notion that his staff would work harder if we were afraid of bankruptcy, so he stopped buying leather. I don't know how these things were connected. Naturally, we could not make more shoes. We told customers that the wait would be longer than ever for their shoes. Sales stopped. Orders stopped. I swept the floor 10 times a day. He refused to buy leather for 3 months, while keeping all of us working, paying our wages with his own credit, because he was mad at someone who told him that his strategy was idiotic. The company was bought out by another old boys club entrepreneur pinhead after the owner ran out of money. My school is one of the few schools to be part of the Apple Distinguished Schools. Everyone in middle school and high school gets their own MacBook Air. Everyone from kindergarten to middle school gets iPads. Meanwhile, our art department is one guy who is paying for everything himself because he loves art and does it for the students. My class donated the money we got from fundraisers that we rolled views to go have a party after our graduation ceremony to our school departments that were in need. I just bought a $17 plain burger at a concert venue. Me. Buying $5K worth of crypto at the peak of the December 2017 rush. Had a friend who was in his late 20s and lived with his parents, 100% dependent. Dude worked a part-time job and said he was saving money for something big. We all assumed he meant like moving out or a trip out of the country or something. No. This MF bought a $750 pair of sneakers and then put them in a display case. I haven't spoken to him in about a year. Going to study abroad in Japan while having a severe allergy to peanuts and eggs and absolutely zero knowledge of the Japanese language. He left after 1 week. Co-workers putting $300 in a slot machine. Lost it all in a few seconds. Then he asked to borrow some money because his kids are coming to visit. I guess I know why he was devoted. Parishioners spent years raising several $1 million to restore their large, aging Gothic church. No sooner was the extensive restoration complete, but what plans were announced by the diocese to close the building and merge the parish with another. All those donations, fundraisers, and tireless efforts right down the drain, and thus far the only potential buyer for the church is considering turning it into a combination nightclub / restaurant / banquet facility. When he was 8, my buddy got hurt in a supermarket because of random boxes in the walkway his mom sewed, and he got rewarded $18,000 in a settlement. However, he wasn't able to touch the money till he was 18. Anyway, when he turned 18 in 2009, he got all of the money all at once. He immediately went out and bought TVs, the biggest of course, and Xbox 360s for 4 family members. Then he paid the $500 down payment on a brand new car and leased it for $350. Mo went to a local sit-down restaurant and paid for others to eat there multiple times, and I don't even want to think about his online shopping. This went on for a month and a half. One day one of his friends made him a deal. It'd buy him a laptop of equal value at the time for his Xbox 360. They went to the store and went to pay for it. His debit card got denied. When he checked his balance, he had about $150 in his account. Few years back I used to make cast molded pewter figurines for D&D. I could buy $25 worth of pewter and MKE about 75 figurines, which I sold for $10 $50 each, depending on the size. Had a guy come to me, buy every figurine I was able to make. I had 72 different molds, for a cost of $900. Said he was going to get deep into the D&D. Week later he gave up on the game because he couldn't figure out the battle system. A family friend of ours splurged his money on several cars. When I say several, trust me, they are in hundreds. I've been to his garage once when he threw a huge party. His garage had several Rolls Royces, several Bentleys, several BMWs, several Audis, several Benzes, several Lamborghinis, and several Porsches. I thought this dude must be rich as frick, until I found out later in the news that he's defrauded banks of money. His debts were amounting x15 the amount of his value of his whole and his businesses. He was thrown in jail. He's out now, I think. My so's family dropped $5k on fireworks for the 4th of July. They do this every year. It blows my freaking mind. They are wealthy, which means $5k is probably pocket change for them. It's just different school of thought. I grew up living in a tent level of poor, so to think what my family could have done with that amount of money every year is what boggled my mind. Also, to those who say they would love to spend that much / spend close to that much / enjoy the 4th and love sharing the fun with friends / family, good on you. I'm glad you enjoy yourself. But for me, personally, I have a hard time imagining literally blowing up my cash to that extent. I was an assistant manager at a grocery store, and you wouldn't believe how much produce I threw out because it wasn't pretty enough. The district manager set a high standard of how the produce should look. If I didn't cull it correctly, he would write me up. He came in 3 times a week, so I couldn't get away with not doing what he asked. When I looked at weekly reports of the shrink, produce amounted for about $100–200. I asked him if I could donate the produce we throw out, and his response was that's theft. I was so glad when this place went out of business. My roommate plays Fortnite and buys every single skin that come out. Every one from the late 1990s. A large multinational engineering firm was given orders to eliminate unnecessary overhead expenses. One of their departments had a large conference coming up. About half the attendees were going to attend by teleconference. In those days, teleconferencing was done in dedicated rooms with court monitors and cameras. The use of these rooms was classified as an overhead expense, but business travel was not. So, in the name of saving money, all the teleconference arrangements were cancelled, and all attendees were flown in to attend in person. I worked at a phone store, and this guy just lost his iPhone X in a river. The guy had insurance on the phone and had a $250 option to use it and get a phone the next day. He said he needed a phone now and ended up paying the $850 he still owed on his phone plus signing a new agreement to get another iPhone X. We make commission off the phones, but I was looking out in his best interest that doing the insurance would make the most sense, but then scoffed and said it's only $800. He was the epitome of I live off dad's money, and him acting like $800 is nothing is the most pretentious thing I've ever seen. Donating money to get Kylie Jenner to be the youngest billionaire. I work as a freelance musician and often stand in for wedding bands. I've worked at lots of weddings where clearly the families have crazy money. One thing I always see at the fancier events without fail is a ton of amazing, fully prepared food and expensive drink being tipped / thrown away at the end of the night. When I asked about it once, I was told by one of the staff that a lot of catering companies are trained to prepare enough of every menu option so that if everyone orders the same thing, they have enough. What happens in reality is they tip away enough food to feed the wedding party, often of 200+ people, another 2 times over. Particularly annoying when the band are served cold chips as their evening meal, because we couldn't stretch the budget. Sorry. On a more positive note, one of the funniest things I've ever seen was a drummer successfully sneak out of a catering tent, having liberated a whole wheel of cheese that night. Once I was at this cheap looking casino with a friend of mine. In this casino there was a round roulette table with 6 seats to sit and play on. As we, only my friend and I, were sitting at this particular table, some guy took 3 seats for himself and kept gambling the maximum amount of money on these 3 seats every game. This guy lost everything of course and went complete berserk after a while. Security had to drag his ass out of the casino because he was fighting the machines while screaming like a maniac. Poor guy probably lost everything that day. Still sometimes wonder how he's doing nowadays. I spent $200 on a taxidermy squirrel wearing a top hat and holding a gun for my brother's birthday. The PS35K tiny Trump balloon flying in London. I thought it was supposed to be a lot bigger. Some rich dude in the Hamptons buying a pallet of Fiji bottled water for his hot tub. I'm doing a course at university that covers specific contracts relating mostly to banking, insurance, credit agreements and other financial contracts and agreements. My lecturer has practical experience as a senior compliance officer at some big banks and told us about one of his clients spending the equivalent of, in today's terms, $68 million buying, adjusting and rolling out software and hardware for their national banking system. The problem was that the software wasn't developed locally and, as a result, included functionality that served absolutely no purpose locally, and further to that omitted functionality that was a baseline requirement in terms of what the bank needed locally. My lecturer attributed this to the fact that it happened around 2001/2002, which is why nobody was absolutely certain about what was going on. I didn't experience it firsthand with my own eyes, but I can feel the pain of the higher-ups who had to admit to making that mistake. Last he spoke of it, he said they ended up abandoning the upgrade, losing out on the sum total of $68 million plus the $753,000 fine that was levied every 6 months for their lack of compliance with standard banking practices. He stepped down as their compliance officer when one of the execs told him that the fines would cost less than restructuring for a new upgrade. I had a friend that thought a good way to save money would be to buy gift cards for places he didn't like. When he actually needed cash, he would transfer them for about 60% value. Idiot. At a festival, while walking back to my campsite, I pass a girl who was probably 20 years old who was buying a wire-wrapped drug spoon for $100. For those of you who are like WTF even is that it's a 2-inch long metal spoon, probably worth $3, with wire decoratively wrapped around the end turning it into a necklace, and you use it to spoon drugs into your nose. I work at a car dealership as an apprentice mechanic. Now I've seen many examples of people wasting their money, be it car parts, dumb accessories, whatever, the list goes on. But there was this one guy that would spend literally $75 on a car freshener and bragged about it constantly. He'd call himself elite because he bought these $75 pieces of scented cardboard. I don't know what went through his mind every time he'd buy one of them. I've broken away from Magic the Gathering a couple times, but now I'm back and I'm playing an FNM tonight. I've totally fallen off the wagon and the cardboard crack has me again. I know a guy who purchased a second car. His first car is a Mustang. His second is an Audi. He is a single father. His payment arrangement is $400 per month. He didn't try to talk it down. The car is 10 years old. His Mustang isn't paid off. He works on my team in the same position as I have. My wife and I together can barely afford our $250 per month single car payment. And the best part? He can't drive a stick. His new car is a stick. He hasn't learned to drive a stick. It's been 3 years. He's been doing all of this and struggling for 3 years for a lawn ornament. Was at the Bellagio in Vegas and walked in the high roller room. There was a guy walking around playing baccarat on 4 or 5 different tables at a time. He'd tell the dealer 25 bank, 5 tie, 25 bank, 5 tie, while rotating around. Basically, he was betting $25, 000 on the bank and $5, 000 on a tie. Asked the pit boss about him. Apparently, he was the son of the LG CEO and was down about $5 million so far that weekend. Does it count if some people live like this? I know a small firewood business owner losing money every month, taking deposits or advances to pay for bills months ago, then never delivering, and his fiancée is a realtor. She must live near New York City. Near her clients rented their 1-bedroom in Weehawken. 1 parking spot. They have 2 cars. $3,200 a month. Maximum out their credit cards for a $500 repair on their car. Get engaged a week later. Rented a penthouse in Mick. Videographer. Violinist. Photographer. 12k ring, and left for Mexico for a week. Come back. Find a monster venue in New York. Leave a non-refundable 10k deposit on it for New Year's Eve for 350 freaking people. Throws engagement party for 100 people. Finds out mom and dad are only kicking in 25k for this blowout. So what is the reasonable thing to do? Take out a personal loan to pay for the wedding. Party doesn't stop until 2 AM. Fireworks at midnight. I can't freaking wait for this crap show. If it even happens. I wonder what it's like living in their world. My boyfriend's dad owns 7 different Apple Watches because he didn't want to change the bands out. I once witnessed a guy launch a luxury car into space when he had the option of using just any old thing that weighed a lot. My boss bought a $30,000 boulder to put in his front yard. Saw an acquaintance let pride get the better of him, and he spent $300 on a carnival game that he never ended up being able to win. I think I had something to do with it cause I won the game. Free throw moments before and he was watching. For some reason in middle to high school I would win that game every single time I saw it. Can't for the life of me anymore. He got a consolation doll though. High school. Some senior wanted Tim Hortons roll up the rim to win thingy. Bought a ton of cigarettes, booze, and drugs. Weddings. A girl who bought her boyfriend of 3 months an $800 watch for his birthday. My roommate is a rich international student. His parents own a very successful business in Beijing. He spent $1, 300 Canadian dollars on a brand new iPad Pro, mind you. He already owned one, so that he can have one iPad plugged into our speaker, and he can use the other iPad as a remote to change the music. A company won a contract in an area of the world they never operated in, but thought they could do it purely because they had the hubris of working in other tough areas of the world. In fact, they were so confident they quickly scaled up to several contracts in this new area. Turns out the equipment couldn't hack the new environment. Company proceeds to blow well over $100 million in a year repairing prematurely failing equipment. Surprise surprise. There was no Christmas party that year, but I'm sure the management team enjoyed their bonuses. At a steakhouse with all kinds of cuts and prices of beef, saw a guy ask for the most expensive fillet cut, then requested very well done and doused the thing in ketchup before he ate it. My friend owns 2 watches totaling $40,000. He can't tell the time. A bonus. $ONE''S''ROMAN numerals $AND HER can't read THEM either. Out with a billionaire friend of my parents. He had them wake up the hotel restaurant's chef to rush over and make us food. Chef was in a great mood too. My brother graduated from law school. We were having a lunch before the graduation event. My grandpa ordered a $500 bottle of champagne for him and his wife at lunch. The waiter mistakenly thought he meant for the entire table of 9. The waiter brings out a $4,000 Magnum bottle of champagne. My grandpa, not wanting to be embarrassed, opened and accepted it. We all drank what we could, and he had the rest sent up to his room. It was about a $6.200 lunch. I bought a 1992 NBA Jam arcade machine. Don't get me wrong. I love me some classic Jam. But my friends told me it was a waste and I haven't turned it on in over a year. A family friend became very successful and celebrated by buying $12,000 of matching wooden hangers. Make sure to like and subscribe so we can watch together.